Recording. Hi, welcome. This is Jane Johnson and Bill Brady, fathers in the One United Body House, doing a recording on who is Melchizedek and some of the immense, unbelievable revelation that Bill has had on this Melchizedek. I'll be interviewing him. Really stunning, a lot of release of mysteries here. And as we know, the age of Melchizedek is very key, moving on from the kingdom age. So the key question of who is Melchizedek and having relationship with Melchizedek is a very key question. Over to you, Bill.
Okay, we want to especially invite Melchizedek, the being, to join us and honor him, and also invite Enoch to join us on this particular Facebook Live. And anybody else, being or person, who is part of this mandate to join us. There have been 10 people over history who have been Melchizedek on the earth, and any of those may choose to join us today. Back to you, Jane.
Yes, I just want to say this really does require you to be in the spirit, not academically searching knowledge and wanting desire of relationship with Melchizedek's. That's the key part of the new wineskin, that we don't just accumulate more and more knowledge. So if that's not where your desire is at the moment, that can be something that you can actually deal with your soul around to change that as well. And we often find then the flow happens quite well. So we're going to be doing part today on this free Facebook Live, and then we're going to be doing part on our paid Patreon. So if you want more information, sign up to our Patreon. It's very cheap. You'll come into relationship, you'll honor us, and then you're likely to get more flow of revelation and understanding yourself by that honoring. So we've got three things we want to cover today: the basics about Melchizedek, an outline of Melchizedek in the past, and an outline of the restoration of Melchizedek in the present. Let's just look, Bill, shall we start with the basics about Melchizedek? What does the name mean?
Sure. First off, Melchizedek means king of righteousness. So Melchizedek is part of the gospel of kingship. It's part of kingship, but it's specifically kingship with respect to righteousness.
And do you want to just explain that? How does that differ from anything else? What kind of...
Well, okay. We've had revelation that there are 12 strands of DNA, 3 for the Spirit, 3 for the Son, 3 for the Father, 3 for man. And the 3 for the Spirit are righteousness, peace, and joy. And so my sense by encounter is being crowned as a Melchizedek gives you the fullness of that DNA strand of righteousness. That's where what I've personally experienced just recently, by the way.
And does that just mean doing the highest blueprint of Godhead?
Yeah, but righteousness, peace, joy, the way, the truth, the life, judgment, justice, holiness, the spirit, the soul, the body, those 12 strands of DNA, each of which is also a heavenly city and king of righteousness. is the way I currently see it. Did you want to ask a follow-up question on that, Jane?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can now, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was messing around with the microphone. I'll just try it one more time. A moment. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Yeah, does it also not mean king of peace, named Melchizedek?
Well, the actual name Melchizedek means king of righteousness. There are a couple of names. Let's back up a little bit. There have been several men in past history who have been the Melchizedek on the earth. And there is a progression of names that brings them up to the place of being the Melchizedek on the earth. And then there's a progression of names that happen after becoming the Melchizedek on the earth. And King of Peace is one of those names that follows being King of Righteousness. So let's do it this way. The first one is the prophet. So the person who is the Melchizedek initially is going to be the prophet on the earth. Then they enter into kingship, and then to Melchizedek. And then after that, there's a series of names that these men could do a journey into. I don't necessarily see that all of them did, but some of them made the way to the end of that journey. And that would include some names, I'm not putting them in order necessarily, but some names like King of Salem, um, king, a priest of the Most High God, and then made like the Son of God is the final one in the progression that they went through at that time. And I don't see that all of these men actually reached the end of that progression of being made like the Son of God necessarily, but I'm certain that at least Enoch and Noah did reach the end of that progression of being made like the Son of God. Hebrews tells us that of this. Actually, also Shem, who was the one that went out and met Abram rather, also became made like the Son of God.
Oh, hang on, you've jumped a lot now. Now I'm still at the definitions.
Okay,
So are
that's
you
fine. Let's
saying there's
figure it out.
a Melchizedek and a the Melchizedek?
I was talking about the Melchizedek on the earth.
So
That's
the Melchizedek on the earth, who's that?
okay. Yeah, this person initially was a prophet, then was the king, including king of righteousness, and was a priest. So every one of these men who ended up being the Melchizedek on the earth first was the prophet, then the king, and the priest, and those three things in order. And in that order, um, every one of them
How
was
do
a prophet,
we,
a king, and a priest.
does it actually say in Hebrews that they were, I know it says about priest, but does it say in Hebrews about them being a prophet and a king? How
Well,
do you know that?
king of righteousness um, means king.
Oh,
So,
yes,
and with
yes.
respect to Abram, I see him overcoming a whole group of other kings, defeating them in battle, which means he was the king that defeated a whole group of other kings. So he definitely was a king at that time before he even began was given the name Melchizedek. And so every one of
What
these
about
men at the
prophet?
time had these three names: prophet, king, and priest.
But where did prophet come from in the scriptures?
Okay. The first mention of the word prophet in scripture is of Abram.
Abram being a
So,
prophet.
yeah, so we know he was a prophet before he was
Oh.
a king, before he was Melchizedek, before he was a priest. Um, and we
Do you
know
know
he
what
was
kind of things
trained
he
as a prophet.
prophesies?
What's that?
What kind of things he prophesied?
Um,
Big things.
I can't think of anything that he actually prophesied so much as the scripture says that Remember, he said that Sarah was not his wife. He said Sarah was his sister. His wife was his sister, and Sarah was taken to the harem of a king, and that king then he and his household entirely were cursed. And at a later point, God revealed that Abram was a prophet, and that when he prayed for this king, then the king and all his household would be healed. So Abram healed as a prophet. I don't necessarily see him prophesying as a prophet as recorded in scripture, but we see him definitely as healing as a prophet.
Oh, that's unusual then, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's a combination of prophet and healing.
Yeah, well, think about it.
How do you
Elijah and
know he
Elisha
healed?
healed also.
Oh, because he said he was a prophet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So um, let's just run through the Melchizedeks on the earth. Then,
Yeah.
who are the first
Now,
Melchizedeks we see from Scripture?
just so you're aware, this revelation that I'm sharing here comes from revelation that was given to me. It comes from revelation that Enoch gave to me, and revelation that Enoch gave to me as a download, but it also came from some books. And I'm quoting from a book now that lists off the 10 Melchizedeks on the earth in order. First one being Adam, the second one being Canaan, not the Canaan that was the son of Ham, but a different Canaan. The third one was Enoch. Fourth was Methuselah. Fifth was Noah. Sixth was Shem. And Shem was the Melchizedek who came out to Abram and blessed him. Abraham was the seventh Melchizedek. Isaac was the eighth. Jacob was the ninth. And then Yeshua himself was the 10th.
So
And if you
is that all in Scripture, those ones, or?
No, well, each of them is actually mentioned in scripture. And you think about each of these men, each of them had a really big place in
I
scripture,
mean,
which explains why they had a big place. They had a big place because they were Melchizedek.
but
Um,
it doesn't specifically say that they're Melchizedeks, even in the book of Enoch or one of the other books.
the history between the book of Jasher and the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees, and then some other historical sources list these men out as each of them as having been a Melchizedek.
Oh, right. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
when I
think that's
mentioned
where
the
we
book of
need to.
Jasher or the book of Jubilees, these are books that are quoted in the scripture as a source for scripture, which means that scripture recognized them as being true history, or scripture wouldn't quote them as a source.
Right. Now we have a page on this that we'll just put in the Patreon only. If you want to go over this as well to make this really clear in your understanding. It took me years to really get to this level of understanding and seeking who Melchizedek was in relationship. So this is something that needs to be honored and sought and ratified in your own journey as well.
Yes.
Not many are talking about who is Melchizedek, and so this is a very big topic that we present to the House, the Universal House, for ratification as well. And yeah, look forward to hearing if you feel that there is anything that is different. This is an ongoing revelation. So we've got the Melchizedeks that actually were men, and the Melchizedek who was a created being in heaven, created before creation of man. I've personally encountered the created being in heaven.
Me too.
And was sort of quite shocked that when I saw the scriptures about it being men. Initially, I thought it was just a created being.
Yeah.
But I now see, as with a lot of things, it's both. It's the law of duality. It's both. Both are true in parallel, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. And It's interesting to see the role on earth that those men we've just described had. Do you want to describe about the Melchizedek on the earth had several functions, what you've put there?
Well, first off, again, prophet, king, and priest. But let's go down to the list of things that each person did. First off, he was a teacher of righteousness to those who were seeking righteousness. And there is historical records of some of these men teaching hundreds of thousands of people about righteousness. Secondly, he was the head of the school of the prophets. Third, he was the father of his Melchizedek's son. So, for example, Shem was the father of Abram, and Abraham, once he's Abraham, was the father of Isaac, and so on. And in addition, each one of these Melchizedeks had their own unique Melchizedek mandate. You can think about Enoch, where he was taken up into heaven and trained by the righteous watcher angels, returned and then spent a year on the earth. This is out of the book of Enoch. And trained men, and then was taken again permanently into heaven. You can think about Noah and the flood. You can think about Abraham and being the father of us all. These men had these kinds of massive mandates because they were the current Melchizedek upon the earth during their own generation. That's why they were the fathers that we know them to be, with these massive mandates that they accomplished. And actually, part of what Yeshua did, he did as the current Melchizedek on the earth of his time. That, of course, was not at all only what he was, but he also was that, amongst other things.
So, do you want to talk about the standard of righteousness, being the seven Noahide laws?
Yes, yes.
That's quite an unknown topic that not many know about.
Yeah. Well, all of these Melchizedeks lived, with the exception of Yeshua, lived before the giving of the law of Moses. So there was law in place before the law of Moses, and the same law that was in place before the law of Moses is in place after. So we have the seven Noahide laws. Noahide. Actually, Noah gave the seventh, but history records that Adam gave the first six to his children, which of course includes all of us, right? Everybody since Adam is Adam's child. And then Noah gave the seventh one to his children, which includes all of us too, because everybody that got off the ark with Noah, all the rest of us are descended from those three men. The seven Noahide laws will sound very familiar. Abstain, number one, abstain from idolatry. Number two, do not commit blasphemy. Number three, do not commit murder. Number four, do not commit fornication, by which it means sexual immorality. 5, do not steal. 6, establish laws and courts of justice. And this particular law is the one that gives us the right to legislate. Establishing a law is legislating a law. And then the 7th law is do not eat blood, by which it means don't eat living blood. This would be like ripping a limb off a living animal and eating it, something, that kind of thing. So these 7 laws were the laws that Melchizedek's taught people to be righteous by keeping these 7 laws. And if you think about it, in the 7 letters to the 7 ecclesias, do not commit fornication is in there, it's sexual immorality. Do not commit idolatries in there, and do not commit blasphemies in there, though it's actually blaspheming men rather than blaspheming God. But it's very interesting that these 3 laws, 3 of the 7 laws, are mentioned in the 7 letters to the 7 ecclesias. So what I see is the Melchizedeks were righteous based upon keeping these laws, in part anyway. That was part of where their righteousness came from. And then also, we today who are the nations and are not natural Israel can come into righteousness in the same way by keeping these 7 Noahide laws, is what I see. Now, I know it's a very controversial statement to make, but that's what I currently see.
So I wonder if we should finish here and do the rest on Patreon. But I just wanted to ask, where do we know these Noahide laws from?
Again, history. They're recorded in history.
Where?
Books like I mentioned, the Book of Jubilees, sorry, what was the other one I mentioned?
Oh, Joshua.
Anyway, the Book of Jasher. Thank you. Those kinds of places, they're mentioned. Many other places also in ancient history. A lot of this stuff that I'm speaking to you about comes out of Qumran, and in the caves there with the documents that were found in those jars, had a lot of these kind of documents that came from ancient times and give us a lot of this kind of revelation.
Is this linked to the Dead Sea Scrolls as well?
Dead Sea Scrolls, exactly. That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and actually, those people that were at Qumran were functioning in this kind of. They were actually like direct descendants of the Melchizedeks, if you want to put it that way, and trained John the Baptist, and Yeshua probably had some influence from them as well.
Wow, just shows you how much we missed out not having those books in the Bible.
Yeah, well, a lot of that stuff at Qumran was basically, it was hidden away until the right time, right? God revealed it when he wanted it revealed. He stored it there to be hidden away until it was the right time to reveal it. And then in preparation for our generation, a lot of this was then revealed, and the scholars have done the translations and so on, so that we can look at all this truth that they had hidden away and stored away. And then when they disappeared, before they disappeared, they hid it all in the caves.
Well, thank you.
One more thing I want to do before we go on, I just want to point out that during all that time that there were Melchizedeks on the earth, there was one Melchizedek at all times. And that Melchizedek prepared and trained someone to replace them, so that when they died, or in the case of Enoch, when they were taken up, their replacement was trained and ready to step in and take their place. So an example of this in Scripture is the Melchizedek coming out to Abram, bringing the bread and the wine and blessing him. That was Shem, who was the current Melchizedek upon the earth, doing some of the work that needed to be done to get Abram, he wasn't Abraham yet, he was Abram, get Abram started towards him being the next Melchizedek upon the earth. And actually, Abram had been trained, we know this from the references I mentioned, that Abram had been trained in the house of Noah, and Shem was there at the same time, and Abram was in that house for 40 years, being prepared, getting all this training on how to be a prophet, getting the character preparation that he needed to be a prophet, and also to later to be a Melchizedek. And then when he had gone through the stage of being the prophet on the earth, and then through the stage of being the king upon the earth, and had defeated those kings that had captured Lot, at that point, Shem knew that Abram was ready to have the next stage of his journey, and Shem came out and blessed Abram. At that point, the transition, well, the Melchizedek was placed in Abram at that point, and he then began training at that point, is the way I see it. So that what really that whole passage in Scripture about the Melchizedek coming out and bringing the bread and the wine and blessing Abram All that is the Melchizedek father that was on the earth at that time, blessing his Melchizedek son who was going to replace him. That's what that was all about. And when Abram blesses his son Isaac, it's the same thing. It's part of the transfer of Melchizedek from the father to the son. And when Isaac blesses Jacob, it's the same thing. It's part of the transfer of Melchizedek from the father to the son. It wasn't just father-son stuff. It was Melchizedek stuff that was going on in those blessings. This is very, very important, because if you're out there and you've got a calling as a Melchizedek, and you may or may not know this yet, and somebody listening to this recording at a later time may be more prepared for this, but if you've got a calling as a Melchizedek, at some point, the current Melchizedeks on the earth are going, one of them is going to bless you and impart this to you, but it won't happen until after you've had massive prophet preparation and training, and also massive king preparation and training.
So do contact us if you feel that that's have that calling.
Yeah, we would like to meet you.
We would encourage you again to sign up to our Patreon, where you'll get more information on this, and our Telegram chat, where we come closer into family and relationship, and you can ask more questions around this. That's on our homepage, and we'll put this page on Patreon as well, and we're just about to record an extra 20 minutes on this topic. Okay, thank you guys, bless you.
Thank you and bless you.